Alright, so I'm kind of just winging this. I just want to talk about this, like, COVID stuff that's going on and just my thoughts about it. I believe that everybody should have their own opinion about this stuff. You know, I think that we should all be talking about our opinions, whether they're totally different or whether they're on the same, you know, whether they're the same or whatever. You know, of course, right now I could say there's, like, one camp who is completely afraid of, you know, the coronavirus, and maybe for good reason. I think some people, you know, I think for themselves are okay. Like, I believe that the number is low enough. And it's affecting people typically with other health conditions and stuff like that. So I think if you're, for the most part, if you're healthy, I think we're probably going to be all right. However, you know, I can't speak for the people who are, you know, not healthy right now, and, you know, my heart goes out to you guys. Now, then there's the other camp, you know, who is, you know, suffering tremendously from, you know, the economy collapsing and stuff, and, you know, there's some people who think this coronavirus is a complete hoax, which I think that's bullshit. There's some people who are, you know, the conspiracy theorists, you know, who are jumping on, you know, all sorts of things. Now, I like to think that I'm kind of somewhere in the middle when I talk about this. The coronavirus is definitely happening. It's definitely legit. However, at the same time, I think it's being used as a tool to push a authoritarian agenda. So what do I mean by that? Right now, YouTube and Facebook, and I believe some other sites are currently, like, shutting down scientific discussion and opposing views to the CDC. Now, in science, or actually, I'll give you an example. So the two guys in Bakersfield, California, who came up with a statistically lower number of deaths, or coronavirus-related deaths in California, they were like they owned like a couple urgent cares or something like that. And they had this video. It went viral. I'm sure you guys watch it. I'm sure one of you guys have seen it. You know, a handful of you have seen it. This video was an example of how science can be used to, you know, maybe it doesn't match up with what has already been said, but that's supposed to be something that's added to the conclusion that's being made. And the problem is that what happened was, as soon as it became, you know, something that was widespread, something that was viral, they shut it down. This is an example of dissent. So dissent is something that challenges the authority, the authorized narrative. Now, in the United States, dissent is something that I believe is something very important, because it opens discussion. You know, like, you know, we need to question, you know, our authorities. We need to question, you know, the people who are very powerful. You know, this country belongs to all of us, and all of us are equal. You know, all of us are human beings. All of us deserve an equal place in this country. You know, at least that's what our Constitution says, and I do believe that. So we need to exercise that sort of dissent. You know, we need to talk about these things. You know, at least question these things. I believe those scientists were. However, the CDC and YouTube, you know, shut it down. You know, they shut it down. They didn't try to reason with it. They didn't try to talk about it. They didn't explain why they were shutting it down. All they said was they claimed it as misinformation, and that's it. Shut it down. Now, to me, that's something that's incredibly problematic. Now, the reason why is because, the idea is that, okay, they're shutting this down because, we can't let people think that the coronavirus is not less, because we don't want people to die, right? Okay, so that's fair. That's fair. We want to shut down this misinformation. The problem with that is that it doesn't allow people to think about what this answer is. And now, if this becomes the new norm, what sort of things can happen in the future? Like, what sort of things are, can the government or can YouTube agree with and then choose to cut out as, and label misinformation? Whose truth is it? It's not our truth. It's not like what we think. Our opinions at this point, our thoughts don't matter. It's what the thoughts of the government matter. And that's something that America specifically and free world countries don't have. Authoritarian governments have this. China and North Korea, they control their narrative. They label things misinformation. Any sort of dissent, any sort of questioning can get you thrown in jail. They can throw you into re-education camps and whatnot. It's pretty bad. It's not good. And I'm seeing this for the first time in the United States. This is the first time that something like this is happening. So incredibly alarming, in my opinion. Now, now the argument could be that, oh, well, there's so many, so many people are, so many people can be affected with misinformation. Yes, you're right. You're right. It definitely can. But that's kind of the price we pay. That's kind of, not the price we pay. That's not the right way to say it. We get, it's with the wrong information, with the right information, what they're doing is they're giving us a little bit of information and then removing the rest. And now a lot of people don't think that this information is enough. They don't think that this right here is enough. Now, I think what would be a lot more convincing is if they spread out this information and they made a lot more information that was, that was adequate. I think they need to share all of these things. I think it would be great to hear, Anthony Fauci talking with, these scientists about what these problems are. I would love to hear all of these discussions, that are happening with with leaders, but they're not. They're not happening. They're not online. They're not being talked about. So it's really up to us to think about these things. And so they've left it to us to think about these things. I think that our leadership might be doing a very bad job on multiple levels. It's like, why don't we just talk about what's going on and open up the dialogue with smart people? That'd be fucking great. I think that'd be awesome. I think that there would be a lot less confusion. The fact that there's two widely different camps is an example of a largely confused population, and confusion comes not from information. Confusion comes from a lack of information, and anger comes from a lack of information. So anybody who's angry at one side or the other or whatever, it's because you don't understand the other side, and the other side doesn't understand you. So what you guys are watching, you're watching two separate media channels, and you're deciding to trust it. And I would highly suggest not to. I would suggest, for anybody who watches CNN, fucking, any of the left-wing channels, which is pretty much all of them but Fox News. And then you have Fox News, which is the only one right-wing channel. I think if you just, even if you watched Fox News once in a while, or you watched CNN once in a while, maybe you could get like a little bit of a better idea. However, you still have problems with motivations of these, companies. They're not going to tell you or talk to you about certain people, certain companies that they're getting funded by. So you have to remember that there's, all of these people have, somebody paying them, indirectly, not to a single person, but, they're sponsored by, these drug companies or whatever, to hold back certain information because, of course, if they start talking bad about some of these companies that are sponsoring them, they might not have a job later, so keep that in mind when you're watching these things. So, I really suggest, looking at all types of sources, and if you hate something, really try to understand why you hate it. Don't just think that you hate it because you hate it, and it differs in your mind. There's some sort of confusion. That's what's causing that hate. So, think about that. Try to understand it. Don't be afraid to change your mind. Like all of us are constantly growing. All of us need to learn more and to understand more. We need to fulfill our potentials. So really think about these things. We're all on the same team. All of us. We're all human. We all want a happy life. We all want to walk around and be with our friends and family. We all want these things really bad. And I think everybody has their own way of doing it and their own way that they think that's going to happen, and honestly, I believe that all of us are, right to some degree, and everybody offers a very unique perspective that is incredibly, incredibly important and valuable. Each one of us has a very unique perspective that can offer a lot of value to somebody else when we're able to share it, in a positive and kind way. So I highly suggest that you try to listen to the people that you disagree with. Really try to understand it, because I think that once you understand that, these two sides really are so integral to a solution, you'll see that when you bring these two sides together, there's a massive benefit from, and I think that's really what we need to be striving to do. I don't think that we should be silencing people. I don't think that we should be criticizing or stigmatizing somebody who has different beliefs. I think that we really need to exercise our freedom of speech, but in a respectful and kind way. I do not jump on. I do not think that freedom of speech means that you should be hateful towards people. I don't think that freedom of speech means that you should be racist. Trust me, I do not think that, and I don't appreciate people who try to use that as a way to justify the removal of free speech, because that's not the case. I think that we need to have our opinions, and that every person's opinions are valuable. So we just need to be respectful of those. So I hope